Hey everyone, and welcome to this very special, fully animated storybook edition of our Explainer. I am so excited you're here today because we are going to dive into a classic, hilarious, and honestly, kind of ridiculous tale called The Foolish Emperor. We're going to break down all the funny moments, the sneaky tricks, and the big lessons from this text in a really fun, cartoonish way. So buckle up, get ready to laugh, and let's jump right into the pages of this story.
But before we officially meet our main character, I want to throw a quick warm-up question your way. What would you do if you woke up as a king the next day? Really think about it for a second. Would you build giant, epic castles? Would you declare a national ice cream holiday? Or maybe you'd use that power to help the people in your kingdom live better lives. Hold on to that thought, because we are about to see exactly what the king in our story chose to do with all his royal power. And let me tell you, it was a very silly choice. Section 1. A Vain Emperor's Dream. Okay, so many years ago, there lived this emperor, and according to our text, he had one giant, overwhelming obsession. He loved new clothes. In fact, he loved them so much that he completely ignored his actual very important job. He didn't care for his subjects, the people who actually lived in his kingdom, and he didn't even think about his kingdom at all. Literally, all he ever wanted to do was strut around and show off his fancy, expensive outfits. Imagine having all the power in the world and only caring about your wardrobe.
Section 2. The Sneaky Weavers Arrive. Well, one day, two men came into the kingdom pretending to be weavers, people who make cloth. But they were really just clever tricksters. Their whole plan had three very sneaky steps. Step 1. They told the emperor they could make the finest, most beautiful cloth imaginable, but they absolutely needed the finest silk and precious gold cloth to do it. Step 2. They secretly hid all those super expensive materials for themselves and just pretended to work at empty looms late into the night. And step 3, which is the totally genius part, they claimed this special cloth had magic powers. They said it was completely unseeable to anyone who was stupid. And boom, that brings us to our first vocabulary power-up. The word is invisible, which simply means something that is not seen. The weavers told the emperor that their magnificent cloth was totally invisible to anyone who was foolish or stupid. This was the ultimate trap. The emperor immediately thought, wow, if I wear this suit, I can find out exactly who in my kingdom is stupid. He wanted it right away. But of course, as we know, the cloth wasn't magic. It just wasn't there at all. Section 3. The Invisible Clothes Truck.
All right, the trap is fully set. The emperor, who was super eager to know how his magical clothes were coming along, decided to send his honest, clever old minister to check on the weavers. So the good old minister walks into the room, looks through his glasses, and oh no, he looks at the empty looms and goes into a complete panic. The text tells us he tried his absolute best, but he could see nothing, mostly because there was nothing to be seen. He thought to himself, completely freaking out, oh dear, can I be so stupid? No, I cannot admit that I am unable to see the cloth. So what the minister actually saw was nothing at all, just empty wooden looms. But because he was terrified of looking stupid in front of the emperor, listen to what he said he saw. He goes, oh, it is very pretty, really beautiful. He totally lied. He praised the brilliant colors and the beautiful pattern, completely faking it just to protect his own pride. And it wasn't just him doing this. The emperor sent another official, and that guy did the exact same thing. Literally, nobody wanted to be the one to admit they couldn't see a thing.
Section 4. The Grand Procession. Time for another quick vocabulary power-up. The text mentions a procession, which means a parade as a part of a ceremony. Basically, the emperor's attendants told him he should wear his brand new clothes at a great procession that was about to happen. He was going to show off his invisible outfit to the entire city. So the night before this big procession, those sneaky weavers burned 16 whole candles, completely pretending to work all night long. Finally, they announced the clothes were ready. The emperor completely undressed, and the weavers pretended to put the new suit on him, piece by invisible piece. So picture this. Our emperor is just standing there in his underwear, looking at himself in the mirror from all sides and saying, I am ready. Doesn't my suit fit me wonderfully? It is just so goofy. And then the moment of truth arrives. The emperor marched out into the street. Can you imagine the tension here? He's strutting down the road, and all the people in the crowd are staring at him. And what do they say? They actually exclaim, indeed, the emperor's new suit is amazing, how well it fits him. But why? Well, because just like the ministers, nobody in the crowd wanted to admit they saw nothing. Doing that would mean they were stupid. So everyone is just playing along with this giant, ridiculous lie.
Section 5. The little boy speaks up.
Okay, imagine a giant cartoon record scratch right here, right in the middle of all these grown-ups lying to protect their pride. A single, totally innocent voice rings out from the crowd. A little boy pipes up and just shouts, "But he has nothing on at all!" He didn't care about looking stupid, he just pointed out the super obvious truth. The emperor was literally marching around the town in his underwear.
That little boy's honesty completely broke the spell. Suddenly, everyone started whispering what the boy said, and finally, the whole crowd realized the truth. They all started crying out, "He has nothing on at all!" The text tells us the crowd just laughed and teased him all the way to the end. And what about our foolish emperor? Well, he realized they were right, but he was way too stubborn to stop. He just puffed out his chest and tried to walk with great dignity, which, let's be real, probably just made him look even sillier.
Section 6. Lesson and vocabulary time.
So after that wildly embarrassing parade, the emperor finally sent his soldiers to arrest those two sneaky weavers. But guess what? They had already fled the city. They ran away with all the money and the precious material, leaving the foolish emperor with absolutely nothing. It just goes to show that letting your vanity blind you can pretty much cost you everything. Now, before we get to the big moral of the story, let's do one last vocabulary power-up from the text's amazing list. The word is magnificent, meaning extremely beautiful. This was the exact word the emperor's attendants used to describe the totally fake, invisible clothes. They actually said, "It is magnificent, beautiful, excellent." It just proves that you really shouldn't always believe fancy words if your own eyes are telling you something completely different. And that brings us to our value pick, pulled right from the source material. Avoid being foolish. You see, the emperor, the minister, and the entire crowd were all so terrified of looking stupid that they actually became incredibly foolish by lying. That little boy was the only truly smart one because he just told the simple truth. It is always, always better to be honest than to pretend to know something just to fit in with everyone else. To finish off our explainer today, I want to leave you with a quick comprehension check, directly from our storybook text. The emperor doesn't care of his A, subjects, B, kingdom, C, new clothes, or D, ministers. Trick question alert. We know from the story he didn't care for his subjects or his kingdom because literally all he cared about was his clothes. But this whole story leaves us with a much bigger question to think about. When is a time you were afraid to speak the truth just because everyone else was silent? And how can you be brave just like that little boy? Thanks so much for tuning into this explainer, and as always, stay curious.